and each one of the participants is going to be introduced by Ingrid.
Okay, so unfortunately, one of our members couldn't make it today, so I apologize for that. I found out very last minute and didn't get to sub anyone in, but we are going to be hearing from Aarti, Sura, and Angela Chapman today, and Lori Alala was our member who was supposed to also speak today and just unfortunately got called away last minute. So, but really looking forward to this. I picked only women this month, not for any particular reason other than I thought it would be really interesting just to hear from the women members of Rotary and hear their stories. So we're going to start with Aarti Sura. So Aarti?
Hey, great. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I wanted to start and tell you a little bit about my personal background with Rotary. My father's first trip to the U.S. was actually 40 years ago for the Rotary International Convention in Chicago in 1980. So that visit to that convention was really what sparked them immigrating to the U.S. after that visit. So I grew up around Rotary. My father was a member of the club in Rockingham, North Carolina. And actually, although they moved to Charlotte at least 10 years ago, maybe almost 20 years ago now, he still remains a member of that club. As part of that club, he helped start a partnership with a club in India where they held an annual eye camp. So they came in every year and they brought in doctors to give people eyeglasses and eye surgeries, and a lot of them helped them see for the first time. So that was a very special experience for my dad, and he was so excited when I joined this Rotary Club. So it's a little bit just about my background in Rotary. But my background, I was born in Florida, but I've been Tar Heel bred since the age of 3. I grew up in Rockingham, North Carolina. Rockingham is not known for a lot, but they are known for the Rock, which was our NASCAR track, and that was very big when I was young. My dad was an accounting professor at the community college there. My mom was an 8th grade science teacher. She taught biology. And then later on in their careers, they both left their teaching careers and they got into the motel and restaurant business, and now the hotel business. So originally it was huddle houses. So we've got a lot of, my dad's a really good short order cook. And then later, like I said, into the motel and hotel business. Growing up in Rockingham was interesting. I think in a lot of ways, we were, it wasn't a very diverse community, to put it mildly. So I think you were kind of black, white, or there was like a few Indians. And that was kind of how I remember growing up. I always felt like we were very well accepted. My dad was a part of city council and all kinds of other things. And then, but I also remember little anecdotes which my parents never talked to us about. But I remember, for example, when my dad got into the motel industry, which a lot of Indians, as everyone probably knows, are in even today. I remember there was maybe a half dozen to 10 motels in town, and there was one that was owned by a white family. And I remember a billboard going up that said, "Only American-owned motel in town." So we had a very interesting experience in Rockingham, and I think there was some maybe highs and lows, and I'll come back around to why I gave you that anecdote and some of what that thinking came into my mind when we moved back to North Carolina. So I wanted to only go to UNC. I was, like I said, Tar Heel bred. Unfortunately, I got in. I had no idea what I wanted to do in college. I chose business administration mostly because it seemed like a very vague choice to make, and I didn't want to make a choice. So I went to their undergraduate business program. But afterwards, I got my first job at McCall Partners, and it was a boutique investment bank in Charlotte. And it was drinking from the fire hose. I was an analyst in mergers and acquisitions, and it was a fantastic experience. I was very lucky in that my mentor in that job was Hugh McCall. He is the former CEO of Bank of America, so he is really the guy who grew it from a small regional bank to Bank of America. If you know anything about him, I was extremely fortunate. And that experience, although I didn't necessarily see myself in investment banking for my life, it did make me maybe for the first time really feel this excitement about being in the business world. So I then decided to apply to business school for my master's program. and I attended Harvard Business School in Boston. It was a great experience, not necessarily because of the education. I think I get that question a lot. Did you learn a lot? I mean, I think I did learn some, but honestly, the bigger experience was the network. And I now have a network of friends that I've really learned a lot from across the globe and across different industries. And that's been and continues to be a very eye-opening experience for me. You know, as a small example, we have a WhatsApp chat that we talk through a lot, and experiencing COVID through the eyes of friends in China and all over the world has been really interesting. So I've really appreciated that piece of going to a school with such an international array of students. Right after business school, I got married and we stayed in Boston for a while. That's where my husband was doing his residency. And then afterwards, we moved to Atlanta where he was going to do his fellowship. So this whole time that we lived in Boston and Atlanta, I was actually working at a firm that I helped start out of Raleigh, North Carolina with a business school classmate of mine. So it was Monday through Wednesday, I'd fly into Raleigh, and then Thursday, Friday, I'd work from home in either Boston or then later Atlanta. So this firm was called Three Ships Media. It still exists today, although now I'm just an investor, it's still doing well. But it was a tough 5 years in that we really didn't do well the whole time. We pivoted and changed the business model a lot. And I grew a lot as a business leader, I think because I had to, because we had our backs against the wall a lot of times and trying to figure out how to make the business go forward. So I think at that point we were in Atlanta. I had worked at this agency for 5 years, and we had finally really gotten it to a place where it was running smoothly. We had one child and another on the way, and we were trying to figure out how to get back to North Carolina. At this point, my family was in Charlotte and his was in Raleigh, and we found this opportunity in Hickory. And we liked everything about the job. We were both nervous about the town, and maybe myself more than him, because he's never lived in a small town in North Carolina. But I was so impressed when I got here with just the people we met and the facilities we have. And so even though we were a little nervous, we came back. The first year I didn't have a job. I had my second child, and I really just tried to get to know people and see what the city was all about. I had decided I wasn't going to work at the firm in Raleigh anymore, partly because I didn't want to travel, but I also didn't want to work from home because I felt like if I did, I was never going to get to know Hickory, and I would never really kind of assimilate into the community. And I think that was one of the better decisions I made. In that process, I got to know Eddie Beard. He is, at the time, he was our COO, and he is now our CEO at Catawba Valley Health System. And I think if I've learned one thing through various jobs, it's that the people you choose to work with is, absolutely one of the defining factors of what your work experience is going to be like. And Eddie and I clicked from the beginning, and I think we formed a really good partnership. My job here is Chief Strategy Officer, but I'm really over strategy, operational improvement, and marketing. It's been fun translating skills from very different industries into healthcare, which I've had to learn a lot about over the last 5 years now I've been at this job. I think we've really been able to take our health system to the next level in terms of strategy and using real-time data to improve decision-making. COVID in particular has been a test of that. And I think in particular, a lot of what my team built over the last few years, we've pivoted completely during COVID, and now we're using that real-time dashboard and system that we've built to monitor, live patient counts, bed counts, ventilator use, supply issues, and I think that's really helped put us ahead of the crisis. So work has changed a lot for me in the pandemic, but it's still challenging, it's still exciting. And I've really enjoyed being in Hickory, and I've really enjoyed being in Rotary and seeing some of what my dad really enjoyed about this organization. So I tried not to take too long and bore anybody, but that's my story. What can I answer for you?
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Thank you, Aarti. I love that you started with the story about Rotary and hearing even your family history about that. So if anybody wants to type any questions, maybe in the chat box, and Dave, if you can grab those, and maybe we can go ahead to Angela's story, and we can come back with questions for both of them. So as you think of those, go ahead and put those in the chat box. So thank you. Angela, are you ready to tell your story now?
I am ready to tell my story. So my story began, I am a local girl. I was raised here in the Conover area. My family has been here for 5 generations, so I'm just about as local as you get. Um, but whenever you look at my family, there have been a lot of people who've done different roles in the community. Everything from working the railroad to textiles to my father was in furniture. He worked for Sherrill Furniture for 50 years. So I am actually the first person in my family to have a bachelor's degree, and I went to Appalachian State University. After that, I married my high school sweetheart. See, I'm telling you, it's as local as it gets. So we've now been married 30 years and have 2 children. So when you look at my background, there's a word that was coined, I guess, a few years ago that's called multi-potentialite. And you're saying, what in the world is a multi-potentialite? A multi-potentialite is a person who takes all the different things that interest them and their skill sets and matches them together. So when you look at my very first job, I worked at the Hickory Museum of Art as their public relations officer. And I was able to begin my career there because I walked in one day to the museum as a high school graduate, as a almost graduate of college, and walked up to what I didn't know then was the director of the museum, who was the wife of the founder. And I said, "Hi, I'm Angela, and I'd like to do an internship here." And she said, "You would?" And I said, "Yes." So I don't know if you all know Mickey Coe or not, but she was typically your Southern belle. She was the wife of Paul Whitener, who was the founder of the museum, and she had so much fun. So she let me do an internship there, and in turn, I became their public relations officer and stayed there for about 5 years. It was a great way in the community to get to know people in Hickory and what their passion was about our area. I got to know people like Margie Owsley and Suzanne Hambrick and Nancy Phillips, and they were great mentors as a young woman in the community. And the thing that I found, though, whenever I was working there was that so many people are connected in this community. And one of the people that connected me to my next level was Bruce Eckert, who used to be the mayor of Conover. And he said, "Angela," he said, "I love you working here, but I've got a friend who's looking for someone at their company, and it's with a trucking company. So what in the world did I know about trucking?" And I'm just going to say nothing. So I went there and interviewed with the president of the company and ended up being there for about 5 years and learned a lot about the furniture industry. They were the largest specialized furniture carrier in the area, shipped a lot of furniture within 500 miles of Hickory. And so I took a lot of the skill sets that I learned there into my next job, because one of the things that I did there was oversee their office. We had about 80 people in the office there, and I used a staffing company to staff the offices with customer service positions, things of that nature. And there was a new staffing company that was starting here in town, and it was AccuForce Staffing. The owner of the company was from Tennessee. He was moving into this area, and he said, "Angela, I like working with you. I'd love to have you come work with our company." And so I started working for the company and helped him begin the offices here and also in Tennessee. So basically what I would do is I would go into an area, mark out what industry we would be working with, whether it be professional, medical, or if it would be industrial. I would go in and do workers' compensation for those areas, and then also hire all the people and train them. So we ended up having about 5 offices, and I worked in North Carolina and Tennessee. And it was a great way for a young person, I was in my 20s, had just had a child, to actually find out all the different industries that are in this area and what we have to serve the different people. So travel got to be a little much in that position. So like I said, I was traveling between 2 states, between North Carolina and Tennessee. And so one day I decided that it was too much. And so God and I had a discussion, and I said, "Okay, Lord, where do you want me next?" So I quit my job without having a job and wondered where in the world I was going to go. So about 3 weeks later, I got an opportunity at the Y. And so we'll just say that that was a divine intervention, I would guess, because I had never had thoughts of working in the nonprofit field and the YMCA. So I was hired by the YMCA, began to work with corporate memberships there. and again, was looking at the different types of industry that were in our community and how we could have a healthier community. So I did that for, I guess, about 3 or 4 years. And then someone said, I don't know if you all know Phil DeCaslo or not, he called me in his office and he said, Angela, I've got this great thing that I'd like for you to do for me. And I said, don't set me up to fail. I don't fail very well. And he said, I promise you I won't let you fail. So he sent me away to a training, and I became the financial development director for the Y. And that was my role for many years with the Y. I was actually at the YMCA for 15 years, but financial development director was kind of the role that kind of let me know my passion there. So I did a lot of fundraising for the annual campaign, which made sure that anyone, regardless of their ability, could pay to be there. And so as my position began to grow, we did some capital campaigns. I had the opportunity to become the branch exec for the Hickory branch. So with that, you do everything from staffing, hiring, programs, campaigns, it's a little. So when I told you that word early on, multi-potentialite, that position let me take all of my interests, what I thought were a lot of my skill sets and networking with people, and begin to develop that into a career. And so, like I said, I was there 15 years. One of the things that I really worked with a lot there was the diabetes prevention program. As you all know, that is a huge health concern in our area. And by writing that grant, I became, I guess, a connector between the YMCA and Fry Hospital. Many of you know Dana Killian. She and I have been friends for several years. And as we began to develop that program, I began to see what my interests were lying in the medical field. And so she said to me, she said, Angela, why don't you come and try this with us? And again, I said, please don't set me up to fail. I don't fail very well. And so she said, I promise. She said, you really have to be a connector of people. So if I look at the many things that have been a common denominator in all of my career, it has been connecting with people. So in all of them, there's been that relationship building. And as Aarti mentioned earlier, I think Rotary has been a key component in that throughout my career. I've been in Rotary for several years now, and it's allowed us to really connect with people in all different aspects. So I could take my part-time jobs that I've had over the years. I was a pharmacy tech, jewelry sales, customer service, public relations, and all of that has built into a career. So over the years, we've been able to do a couple things at Fry that have really been passionate for me. When we were able to bring a neurosurgeon to the area, I was able to really get into that service line. So as Aarti said, it has totally changed in the last couple of years, and we really want to make sure that we're doing different things in the community. So thank you all so much, and if anybody has any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you, Aarti. Really enjoyed both of your stories, and didn't realize we happen to have 2 people in the medical field currently. So, but both of you came from other paths, and I think that's really interesting. So thank you both so much. Yep, if you've got any questions, throw them in the chat. Or just, reach out to our members personally. The point of these programs is to do exactly what Angela's career has been doing, and that's connect us all better and to learn more about our membership base. So if you've got any questions too, you can also personally reach out. But thank you both so much for sharing your stories. Really enjoyed those. To you, Lou.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, both of you, for those great stories. And while we're waiting for any possible chat questions, I just realized that I passed right over Bill Lair, our past president, and wanted to see if Bill has anything he would like to add as our as this meeting goes on. Bill?
Well, you mentioned, Lou, the name tags. And while I don't have an answer for their location, I do have boxes that came out of the closet. In particular, Paul Harris Fellow folios and a bunch of stuffed books that are Rotary books that we don't have room for. So I'm sorry to hear that we have lost our storage space in the closet, but I will be glad to fill a storage space somewhere, sometime, if we do secure a place that has that, because We just don't have room in the house here. But other than that, I think the ladies' stories today are great. I think the addition of women into Rotary has done so much for the organization, because I've served before that event happened, and I've been able to watch our organization change and grow. And I guess, as everybody probably knows now, we have a future president of Rotary International who just happens to be a female. And that's a first for our organization, but it's about time. So I'd like to also thank the ladies. I think Aarti's story, both she and Angela did a fine job. But Lou, I don't have anything else other than I need storage space.
Well, I think I can help you there, Bill. I've got a couple of buildings, so I'll get with you later, because I can get stuff off your hands. And thank you for all that. And again, to Aarti and to Angela, thank you for those great programs. We appreciate it. Next week, the program will be on vocational rehabilitation, and it will be presented by Joe Curley, and hope all of you can join us for that. As of now, we want to conclude with the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it bring goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And thank all of you for joining us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in about a week. I hope the rest of your week is great. Thanks again.
Bye.
Thank you, Lou.
Mm.
Thanks.